Hi, you sexy biscuits, and welcome into Biomutant. I'm gonna say right now, I like Biomutant. I've put quite a lot of time into this game. I also made a 4-hour-long live stream on this game a few days ago. But it's safe to say the reviews on this game have been mixed, and I personally had issues with the initial launch of Biomutant. My issues surrounding the game stemmed from the intro. During my review period and release, this took around 2 hours, and to be honest, it put a lot of people off. But I'm going to say right now, the developer, Experiment 101, have been listening, and this may be the best patch for a video game I have ever seen. I want to point something out that I don't think many people have talked about, and that is the fact that Experiment 101, the developer of Biomutant, is only 20 people big. It's not very big at all. The fact that they're able to push this game out at the quality it is absolutely incredible. And the fact they have got this patch out in this amount of time is absolutely incredible and honestly blows my mind. So I'm going to be going through the patch notes and going over the things that I think are definitely the most important here. I'm not going to be talking about everything, but these are the things that I had issues with the launch of Biomutant, and these are reasons you should play this game. Honestly, Biomutant is fantastic. It was let down by a lot of overbearing story-related stuff, but once you're into the open world, it's a brilliant, brilliant game. So here is a full changelog for the patch that we just launched. The entire patch will roll out on PC first, and then consoles as soon as possible. And that's of course due to the submission process you have to go through with PlayStation and Microsoft. So within a couple of days, hopefully, of this video going out, this will be released on console as well. So, the biggest thing here is the tutorial area. In order to improve the pacing of the early parts of the game, we've edited dialogues to be shorter. We've also added more enemies and loot to these areas to better represent the experience later in the game. Both of those things I had issues with. The opening area of this game takes you through a sewer, which probably isn't the best place to start a video game. People mock sewer levels in every video game, but the fact that they are streamlining this is really quite good. So they've added early enemy encounters, they've added item drop chance for Bunker 101 crates, they've updated best before memory to decrease the distance between the nonos and the Panzai tree, because you have to walk quite a far distance to give the nonos to the Panzai tree. If you've played the game, you'll know what that means. Removed some parts of out of date and best before's dialogue to improve pacing. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved Best Before and Out of Date because they're both the same character in different time periods. I love the fact that he's like a 50s rockabilly kind of guy, but unfortunately the dialogue did go on a lot. The main issue for me with Biomutant was the fact that every NPC talks gibberish. You can't understand what they're saying, but they will go through and say what they want to say to you, and then the narrator will jump in and translate it into English. And honestly, that dragged out the conversation so much. So you're basically listening to a conversation happen twice. Removed multiple dialogue fragments to shorten tutorial area length. Removed some parts of Goop and Gizmo's dialogue to improve pacing. And removed multiple camera presentations to improve pacing. And now I'm assuming what this means about multiple camera presentations is when your character will just completely stop dead, the camera will zoom over to something that you're supposed to be taking a look at, and then slowly zoom back to you. Now, personally, I don't like control being taken away from me. I would have probably gone over to this thing anyway. It felt a little bit hand-holdy, and that is definitely something I'm glad that's been fixed. So the next biggest thing here is dialogue and narrator. Reduce the amount of gibberish spoken before the narrator starts translating. Perfect! Added dialogue setting toggles for gibberish and narrator, allowing players to select if they want to hear the narrator, the gibberish, or both when talking to NPCs. Fantastic feature. Fixed narration and gibberish playing silently and producing an awkward pause when each corresponding volume setting is set to 0 instead of skipping the sound entirely. Fantastic. Remove the text delay animation when either gibberish or narration is disabled. Fantastic. That's my main issues out of the way. I'm gonna be honest, this has been one of the most surprising patches I've ever seen. The game came out on the 25th, and they've already done this in the space of, what, 8 or 9 days? That's crazy. And that really gives me hope for publishers and developers listening to their communities. I have talked before about my love for Warhorse Studios because they've done this as well. They've listened to their communities and they've worked really hard on making the best game possible. Now, do I believe that developers should only do what the fans should say? No, I don't think that's the case. Because otherwise you get into a situation where you're constantly changing the game because one person said they like this thing, someone else said they like this thing, and then it becomes a complete fusterclug. That's the best way to put it. Something else they've added is a motion blur slider to the settings. Fantastic. I'm not a massive fan of motion blur, so that's nice to have. Fixed, so the camera setting auto-adjust player also applies for combat. If turned off, the camera will no longer try to frame enemies while in combat, and fixed depth of field toggle not being applied in dialogue. Let's look at sound, because this is one of these things that I personally didn't experience on PS5 when I was playing, but I have seen people talking about missing weapon sound effects. Updated melee sound effects across the board, updated mount sound effects volume, added sound effects for tribord, trebuchet, and updated sounds when the player lands inside HQ after being launched from a catapult. There are a ton of fixes for combat. I'm just going to put it on the screen right now so you can see this. There's a lot here, honestly. There's too much here, and I think that's fantastic. Let's go down. Quest and achievements, they fixed some of those. Crash fixes. Personally, when I was playing this in my review period for about 3 weeks before the game released, I had multiple crashes on PS5. It was the most crashes I've ever seen in a video game. Honestly, though, the final update before release fixed all of those. So I don't know what they're fixing here, but apparently, yes, they fixed some extra crashes if you do end up running into them. And I'm going to put some other stuff on here. This is from Miscellaneous, disabled fast travel when jumping from water, and other stuff like adjustable default camera pitch up a bit so not positioned directly behind the player, and fix some doors opening after using photo mode. Which is a little tiny thing, but I'm glad they fixed it. So yeah, I think it's safe to say here the updates that we have in this are incredible. Especially for the first public patch, I think this is crazy. I've got to give a massive shout out to Experiment 101 for doing this. This has basically fixed all of the main issues I had with the game. I think, unfortunately, most of the negative stuff I've seen coming from this game is that opening 2 hours is so slow. People end up giving up before they've actually got out to the open world, and I think that is a real shame. And I'm hoping with this update, people will then come back to play the game. I personally love the combat. I personally love the open world aspect of this game. Looking around and exploring in the different zones was great fun. And I believe this game deserves better, honestly. Should this have been in the game on release? Yes, but I don't think the developers seem to notice how dragged out the narration was. So I don't think they would have ever noticed to be putting this patch in the game to begin with. I think they needed the community to actually play the game and see those issues and be like, hey guys, this is pretty bad. Could you please streamline it? And they've actually done that. So yeah, so it's definitely a bit of a toss-up. I'm not sure. But what I will say is this game is definitely worth playing. I've put a lot of time into the game on PS5. I'm loving it. The gameplay you've been seeing in the background is from Biomutant on the PS5. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know this is a little bit different, kind of going back to my old Kingdom Come Deliverance patch note videos, but really, really interesting. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about a Czech dub for Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is being made by fans and includes Daniel Vavra. So that's the video for tomorrow. I love each and every single one of you. The names flying past the screen right now are my patrons. They allow me to eat every single month. But until next time, that's me out. Bye, guys.
That's a pling-plong booth from the bygone. Back when you needed to cable words via buzzwire instead of airwaving them.